My name's Tracey. I am a queer activist. I'm a speaker. I'm a public servant. I'm also the author of Match Striking for Beginners, Activating Individual and Collective Power for a More Just World. My message when I'm speaking is that I unleash superheroes. And people look at me and they're like, I don't know if I'm a superhero. And it's like, well, I'm talking to you. I believe that everybody has within them this personal power that can be ignited, that can be superhero power. And I have this belief that everybody would love to be able to make a difference. They would love to be able to do something. They just don't always know what their role is, and they don't always know how to do it. And that's what I'm dedicated to do, is dedicated to empowering people where they can also create a better self, a better space that they're in, a better experience, where they can actually achieve the desires of their heart. But I take it a step further because I want to help people along their personal development and their self journey. I want to help them tap into their own personal power so they can achieve their own personal goals. But I also want to see them make a difference in the world. And I had went into policing, and I really feel like I found my voice in policing, but I was living this unauthentic life. I was hurting, I was dying on the inside because I wasn't fully authentically me and wasn't living that life. And two things happened to me. One, the death of my father, and that was a catalyst for me because I was super close to my dad. And I knew then that I couldn't continue to live the way I was living and live a lie, and you would have never known it. On the outside, I appeared to be happy. I appeared to be all those things. I put up a really good front, but on the inside, I was dying. And as a police officer, it took one moment where I almost took my own gun, my own service weapon, and took my life. And before I took my life, there was something that was just pounding and speaking to me that, no, you need to live your life. And I thought, if I'm going to do this, then I'm going to live fully within my true authenticity. And so it was in that moment where I faced life and death in my own story, in my own journey. And I thought, I can either take my life and end it now, or if I'm going to live fully who I am. And I did that. So I made a bunch of changes in my life. I left the life that I was living. I came out of the closet. I came out to be fully authentically me. And I tell people, you don't have to be gay. This is not about being gay. This is about living authentically who you are. And it may be that you're gay, and it may be that you're in this other closet that you're not coming out of, that people don't know who you are, and you're also living in the shoulds and who you should be and who you should not, and what culture and society has told you. And those are the things that slow and stop us from being fully authentically who we are. And finding what we deserve in society and fighting for it. It's really hard. So I take my expertise and my life experience and those actionable steps that I took to kind of lean in and step into my personal power, I use it as a playbook to help others. I realized how powerful that was because that meant using my voice, that meant speaking, that meant telling people who I was. That meant standing for others, which was also a calling to me as I was going to stand for others who were like me to help them also be fully authentically who they were. Particularly when you're a woman, you're part of the queer community, or you're a marginalized community, you know harm firsthand. It's a part of your journey. It's a part of your life. You see it. And so I always think about, gosh, if I'm walking down the street and I've seen this happen. I've had people call me a faggot while I'm walking down the street. I've had people say things, shout things. I've experienced discrimination and retaliation in organizations, those type of things. Is when I see those things, or when they happen to me, who's going to stand up for me? Who's going to simply stand up and say, it's not okay for you to say that? And it could be as simple as that, is calling that person out and saying, it's not okay for you to say that, and having my back in that moment. People find purpose in what breaks their heart. And when I say that, people look at me like, what do you mean by that? What I mean by that is look around. What keeps coming to you? What do you look at in your world that is repetitive, that keeps breaking your heart, that is heartbreaking in the environment that you're in? And I was in a specific environment at the time, being a police officer, where I had people I was engaging with, primarily women, primarily people from marginalized communities who were experiencing violence around sexual assault. And I chose to lean in there. It was not my expertise, it was not my focus. And I thought, well, why me? What can I really do in this space? And I saw that policing was failing in that space, failing people who were coming forward to disclose how they had been harmed. And it wasn't just policing, it was other institutions. And so I decided, okay, this is breaking my heart. I need to do something about it. And I chose to do something about it. I chose to learn. I chose to be that person that would create trainings, that would galvanize others, that would build community around it. And it took off. It became a training that was identified and used across the state. That we started training other departments and other institutions around how to properly and how appropriately to respond to disclosures of sexual assault. This thing really caught fire because I stepped in, because I was going to have a voice, because I decided to do something and take action in a place that people were not taking action in, and people started to notice. And it wasn't long before Uber in 2015, going through what they were going through, experiencing not only sexual harassment on the inside and dealing with things that were happening within the organization, they had a platform that they didn't know what to do, because all of a sudden they had created this technology that they thought could impact the world in a positive way, and it was, but it was also a platform that others were using to harm people. And so they went looking for what some people might call a unicorn, somebody from public safety, but somebody who could also come into a corporate environment and be able to help them address this issue. And then I was asked to come to Uber, and people thought I was crazy to leave policing. I had such a great future in policing. Why would I ever leave policing? And what happened was when I stepped into what was breaking my heart and I did something about it and I took action, all of a sudden the universe opened up a bigger platform, a bigger opportunity to create impact in that same space. But I stepped in there, they asked me to help them learn how to talk about this. I did more than help them learn how to talk about it. How to address it is what we dug deep into. And then I started helping change an entire organization and how they were going to address violence against women in marginalized communities. I eventually became the head of women's safety and gender-based violence programs at Uber, and traveled the entire globe to all 6 continents that Uber operated in, engaging with hundreds of women's groups, also groups focused on the queer community and the BIPOC community, to help create safety programs, technology, initiatives, and started reaching out and taking my approach from policing, which was very much a community collaborative approach, to we need to go outside the walls of our organization and we need to engage with the people who are addressing these issues on the front lines and bring them into the organization to help us not only create change, create technology, create programs that addresses the harm that has found its way on our platform, but we have an opportunity to create and to do something that is much bigger than the company. And then before long, that opened the door for me to become the VP head of safety at Match Group, who oversees dating apps like Tinder and Hinge and OkCupid, and also has a lot of the same issues, right? The same elements of harm that are showing up, not just in real life, but online. I used my voice to create safe spaces where I used my voice, but I also inspired others within both of those organizations that wanted to step up and do something as well. And what I called is building community. Once you start leveraging your own personal power, once you start leveraging your voice, once you start creating change where you're at, other superheroes are going to rise up. And that's exactly what happened at Uber and Match Group, is people were like, I want to be a part of this. I care about this issue. I want to do this. And before long, we had an entire organization. We had champions across organizations that wanted to address that specific issue and make a difference where they could make a difference doing what they were doing. They might be working in marketing, They might be working in operations, they might be working in product and technology, but how can I use what I know and what I do really well, because this breaks my heart too, how can I use my skills to also make a difference? And before long, we had a movement within those organizations, a movement to create change. And so I use all of that. I use my lived experience of the journey I've taken in being a part of one of those marginalized communities and what it looks like, how I rose to the top, but also how I created change in these organizations. I tell people that match striking for beginners is the message of my heart. The message of my heart is not the message of any corporation. The message of my heart is not the message of any organization, any particular group. It's the message of my heart. And for me, match striking for beginners is that message. It is that mission. It is my approach to self-development. And what I do is I use also not only my lived experience, but the lived experiences of others. It is about how somebody like me, a member of a marginalized community, can create change, and how our personal development, our journey to personal development is much different than many others. So it was also, how can I give back to the world and to the most marginalized to help them ignite their own personal power, but to give them the playbook that I used to tap into that personal power and to create change. Not only my own individual change, but how it was the approach and the playbook that helped me create change within organizations and create ultimately societal change right where I was at. And I feel like the book doesn't have all the answers, but what it does have is what's worked for me and what's worked for others. And that people walk away from it saying, I feel seen and I feel heard, and I feel like this can help me get where I want to go, and it can help me be a part of change in this world, the change that our hearts have been aching for so long. The book really is speaking to anybody. It's speaking to allies, it's speaking, to the people who want to make a difference in this space, who want to better understand the lived experience and the challenges that marginalized communities face, who want to be a hero too, who also have already identified they're a superhero and they're wanting to know, what is my role and how can I make a difference? Like, I know I'm a superhero, but what do I do, in these communities? How can I be a part of that collective change? We're sitting around waiting for that next superhero to rise up and to lead us forward. And what I want people to know is that you are that superhero. You are the superhero you've been waiting for.